We are live. Welcome to the RG DFS Tournament Takes podcast. I am your host, Chris Kirkwood, screen name Kirk Bees, here with my two boys. First, back from the dead. Not dead, I shouldn't even say that, but doing much better, recuperated, feeling well, vacationing in Florida, got out of the shutdown of Minnesota, back to join us for another week after a week off is Killer B, Brett Hartfiel. Also with us is Canada's number one DFS player, numero uno. There's not anyone in Canada that is better than him. I don't care. I know there's a couple of guys out there, but I'll take toe tag and Tambo against any other Canadian DFS player. Tyler Tamboline. But we're back for week 11. This is a crazy slate already, kind of a weird one. But how we doing, boys?
Yeah, man. Sorry I had to stand you guys up last week. It was just an interesting situation with everything in Minnesota getting shut down this Friday. So we kind of got out of Dodge, and then with my packing, so randomly my luggage gets searched, right? And I always fly with a monitor with me. Get back to my Airbnb and I have a crack in my monitor. So I'm just like, okay, that's great. And then I'm traveling with my two nieces who are 7 and 5, my brother, his wife. And then, so I was just like, okay, it was too hectic to get on a pod. So I had to tap out, but now we're halfway situated, still dealing with a broken, monitor, but we're going to get that replaced hopefully tomorrow. So, Tambo, coming off of week 10, how'd you end up, man?
Wait a minute. So you're in Florida?
Yeah, I'm in Florida, babe.
How are you circumventing is Yahoo back in Florida now?
Yeah. Don't try to get me.
Trying to get you. Blow you up.
So yeah, I think about 18 months ago they legalized it. I remember Dan Bach coming out with like tweets. So they've been legal for 18 months. But yeah, that is something I always.
I just want it on the up and up. That's all I care about. So
yeah, yeah, you would be that guy too. Hey, you out in Florida and you still playing Yahoo?
He's looking for an edge, man. You know Kirkwood and Yahoo. He's just wondering if he can get you out of there because you guys won 2 every week.
Watch him win and then blackmail his ass. You know.
Yeah, Tambo, how'd your week 10 go, man?
I don't remember too much of it, to be honest, man. I'm just happy to be back with Killer B, the Bitcoin boss, and Kirkwood, Fleet Master Flex over there, dropping fleets left and right on Twitter.
Dropping fleets.
Wait. You've done the fleets now?
Oh, he's all in, man. He's all in. Fleet Master Flex, that's his nickname, and he's just dominating over there. So many good fleets, man. So I'm happy to be back with you boys. I'm happy to have the trio back together. And like Kirkwood said, we got a fun week 11 ahead. Maybe this is the week where, I can become a millionaire and move on with things. So I'm excited about this one.
Fleet Master Flex.
I like it.
I like that.
He's writing it down for future.
Fleets are stupid. I mean, it's awful. So I just learned how to so I wanted to my idea was first oh damn, I have so many people that I don't want to see their fleets, but I want their statistical information on NBA Friday or something, you know what I mean? And I was I want to be able to mute them, and then it's mute this person fully, I thought it meant, but I didn't know if you clicked mute, it then asks you whether you want to just mute their fleets or all content.
Oh, that's not bad.
All that was a big thing. So you can go through and weed out the timeline or the whatever you want to call it.
Thank you for that.
So wait, were you using the fleets? Were you using the fleets for comedy purposes, or what were we using them for?
A little of this, little of that, All
right, I'll have to dive into those fleets after this.
The kind of inside jokes with some of my friends too, anyways, all right, week 11. Well, first of all, how'd you guys do last? Oh, I guess we already went over this, right? Brett, you did pretty well. Tambo's moving on to this week.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good Masters week. Good week 10 for me.
So, really? Let's keep rubbing it in. I was talking about football was bad, and now Masters was so bad.
Football was bad enough. I did fine on Yahoo, and but I won in cash on DK, but lost GPP. But I got smoked in PGA, and here he is bringing it up like, oh yeah, the Masters.
Yeah.
It's always good when you
the guy
back
that
end.
withdrew on my mega team, so that tells you everything you need to know about PGA.
It's always good when you back end into the winner of a tournament. So like DJ was like one of my last guys.
I had 100% DJ every single lineup, and I got smoked.
And this guy's talking about running good and just fitting him in at the last second. Somehow got the winner in there at the end. Got to be.
Yeah, I was all about
lucky,
Rom.
Right? So.
It's because I was all fat fuck Kokrak is what I had.
Oh boy,
we're off the rails already, boys.
Yep.
Week 11 NFL. Let's go. Fleet Master Flex in the building. Let's go.
All right. So we got some So we got injury news. We got COVID stuff popping. We've got quarterbacks injured. We've got, I guess, the main picture of the slate to start. Before we've got stuff that was changing it this morning, is that we don't have Russ, we don't have Kyler, we don't have Josh Allen. It's like, what the hell am I going to do? Like, those are the three quarterbacks I play, religiously. So we're now stuck with like guys like looking at Lamar, who's been terrible this week. Cam, maybe, I'm trying to, because I always like that rushing upside my quarterbacks. But so we're going to have to talk about how we deal with that. We're going to have to talk about how we deal with this whole Taysom starting, maybe Winston, maybe not even being a part of their offensive game plan, and then conflicting reports on that and yada, yada, yada. Derek Carty, just, loving his projection, just staring at it all day. His Taysom Hill projection. So, he's popping in the blitz, and he's cheap. He's popping everywhere. So it's kind of like the Tim Tebow situation. Other than that, we don't so the two monster totals of the week aren't on this slate. We had last night's game of the Seahawks Cardinals one on the slate, and then we had the KC Raiders, which is on the Yahoo slate, but not on the main slates for FanDuel or DK. So what do? We looked at some other games. So what else we have from total perspective? We've got Green Bay going to the Dome, which is nice potentially, but it's Indianapolis Colts, whose defense is legit. That game has a 51-point total. That's moved up a little bit. Then there's the Saints with this quarterback situation where we're not 100% sure on. At least I'm not 100% sure how it's going to play out. I guess I have to assume that Taysom's going to be the guy, but I don't know. And against the Falcons in the Dome, line has come down a little bit, but that's a 49.5-point total. Then there's Lamar at home. Is it a get right spot? What is wrong with him this season? And I'd be interested to hear everybody's take on that. But certainly a good matchup against Tennessee for opposing quarterbacks who've done very well against Tennessee. So that game is a 49.5-point total. Although the Titans defense is getting a little bit healthier, they got some guys back in their secondary. So it's maybe a more improved Titans defense. Then there's talk about a bad defense, the Houston Texans at home against my Patriots. So that game's got a 49-point total. Nice that there's not going to be bad weather in New England. That game's in Texas. So that game could be somewhat sneaky. Then there's the Bengals against the Washington football team. There's the Steelers Jags. There's we got some situations to monitor with the Detroit Lions basically announcing everybody out today except for Stafford. By the way, shout out to Stafford's wife on a great take. Did you guys see that on the?
Yeah.
God,
I missed it. What do we got?
She was just talking about how she can't deal with Michigan being shut down and the dictatorship and all that stuff. Like,
nice.
But anyway, they're playing Carolina. So and Stafford's banged up, but Galladay is going to be out. DeAndre Swift's going to be out. Danny Amendola is going to be out. Then you've got the quarterback situation in Carolina. Bridgewater, we thought for sure he'd be out, but now they're saying that they're not giving up hope that he'll make it back for the start. But then you've got the whether we got to figure out whether it's going to be PJ Walker, who he got in and was the he played for Matt Rule under at Temple, XFL star, but like he played awful in his limited time that he just played last week. Or it could be Greer, I guess, right? Is the other guy that's potentially in the mix to be the QB. But still, just kind of a disgusting game. Then there's the Eagles, Browns, and Dolphins, Broncos. Oh, one last two actually decent spots. I think actually two more on the slate. The Chargers at home, just in a great matchup against the Jets, who have just a secondary that you can pick on, are somewhat decent against the run, but are going to be they cut who did they cut? They cut Desir, I think it was this week. And then also they're going to Brian Poole, who's their best cover in that atrocious secondary, who covers the slot. Is on the IR now too as well. So it's just going to be whatever they want to do. This should be a really good bounce back spot for Herbert and Keenan Allen. So that game interests me. And then and Dallas, Minnesota Vikings kind of interests me. Yeah, we've got the plays with like Dalvin Cook for sure. Who's we're gonna have to discuss what we do with him. But like with Andy Dalton coming back this week, I'm kind of tempted to get back on the Ezekiel Elliott train. I don't know. We'll discuss that, but that's the slate. That's the breakdown. That's all the games, and we're going to be going into it. What's the big picture look like to you guys?
Yeah, I think this week nothing really stands out from a Vegas standpoint. I think there's a lot of spots though that I kind of want to invest in, like Cleveland stands out to me. I mean, they've been dealing with bad weather for 2 weeks in a row. Offense has looked really bad. And I think that game kind of has a sneaky possibility to shoot up if we get decent weather. So I kind of like that spot. Your New England Patriots at Houston, I think it is a spot where I kind of want to invest in on some New England side. We haven't seen that offense look right, but still kind of want to go there. And then, yeah, just with some injuries and some weird pricing with guys, I think you can get some unique lineups. Like you said, there's not too many running style quarterbacks that have that huge floor. So it might be a week where we start, we might have to throw in a lot more of those pocket style quarterbacks where it's a little bit easy to correlate those with their wide receivers because they're not getting a lot of points via the run or via their legs. So, yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing. Tambo, what do you got for like a little synopsis of Week 11 here?
Similar. I think, like you said, there's a lot of ways you can still get unique. I think the slate doesn't have any of those standouts. Kirkwood mentioned it earlier with the losing all these guys that we're used to having, right? Kyler, Russ, Mahomes, all these dudes we just don't have. So you got to sort of take your pick between the Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson types, and go from there. But so I do like that aspect though. I think it's interesting for that matter. And then really to me, it just comes down to and we're going to talk about both of these guys, but Dalvin Cook with extremely high ownership, and then Taysom Hill with, I don't know what it's going to be like on DraftKings as much, but on FanDuel, people are talking about, lock button tight end play. So, there's bigger discussion to be had around those two. I think that's really what's going to decide the week on, in some cases, and then you got to get your stacks right, and we'll be going through that as well. So I like a lot of different quarterbacks this week. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I don't know if I like them, but I'm going to play them.
Yeah, I should say that. I like enough that my pool is going to be wide, but yeah, I don't really know who I love the most. So we'll probably get through it as pick and choose as I go through it. But I'm going to get after it with a nice little tourney takedown app here that we'll come to a little bit of an agreement on some certain guys, and I'll roll it out from there. So we'll see what we get into here.
All right, let's start it off at the running back position. Let's talk about Brett's boy, Dalvin, who had a disappointing game in his last one against Chicago. Not disappointed from a usage standpoint. 30 rushing attempts, was a tough matchup. Did just fall short of the 100-yard bonus, 96 yards. Did not get any touchdowns. Did have 4 targets, 4 receptions, but they were all small. So it was kind of an underwhelming game for him. But certainly coming off of 2 absolute monster performances, one against Green Bay, which is a good matchup, one against Detroit is a good matchup, and now heading into what should be another good matchup against Dallas, where they are at home, 7 but touchdown favorite. So good game script for them to do what they like to do with Zimmer. Zimmer loves to do is just pound Dalvin. Should be much easier to run on this Dallas defense as opposed to the Bears defense last week. So the only thing is that, he's got a monster price tag at $9K, and he's not the stereotypical Christian McCaffrey type of guy, who is so utilized in the passing game. He's definitely utilized in the passing game for sure, but it's not to the same extent that a guy like McCaffrey is, that we're used to paying that kind of a high price. So price is extremely high. Other than that, we do have some other options. Another extremely high priced guy is Alvin Kamara, 9,200. I don't know. I don't know if Taysom is a bad thing for him or a good thing, because, you're not going to see Hill air it out deep down the field. It's going to be a lot more shorter passes if he, even though less number of overall passes, a lot of runs he's going to eat up, but it may also open up more running lanes for Kamara as well. So I certainly like him. But he's also banged up a little bit with a foot, but I guess all indications are is that he's going to be fine and ready to go. So he's in play. That's the high end. We've got some value that open up. Well, first we've got will people go back to Duke Johnson after such a disappointing game against his old team in Cleveland last week? Now, I faded. That was the one fade I got right by fading him absolutely everywhere. And I just knew he just wasn't. I just felt really strongly that he wasn't going to have a good game in such tough weather conditions, and where it was just going to be so obvious that they were going to try to pound the rock. And he definitely struggled. No, it was a tough matchup for sure. The New England defense he sees this week, they certainly, first of all, their defense has been extremely overrated. If you still think they're good, they're like horrible DVOA against the run and the pass. I think they're dead last DVOA for against the run, and certainly they've had problems stopping the run. So this is a game where I expect him to be able to absolutely have some success on the ground. And the only problem is play volume that would strike out, that stands out to me, because New England eats up so much clock, and they're one of the most run heavy teams, and they're just going to run. But I still do like it. I like him a lot better than last week. So I hope people, will get off of him some this week, but I don't think that's the case. I'm not sure. Then there's Giovanni Bernard opened up today with Joe Mixon definitely being ruled out. We've got the situation in Detroit to discuss, because DeAndre Swift, who looked amazing last week, and I was so mad that I didn't get on him hard enough last week, because once that report came that he was going to, they made a point to get out news that he was going to be the starting back. So I should have ran with that, because he was such an obvious pivot off of guys like Duke Johnson and Mike Davis and whatnot. I had some, but I wish I had a lot more. But so that opens up for Adrian Peterson and Kerryon Johnson potentially. And I know most people just love playing Adrian Peterson, right, guys?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's got to be just a matchup play there if you go with AP.
But other than that, there's like Antonio Gibson. There's Mike Davis again. I'll be interested to hear your guys' thoughts on, and then we can touch on my boy, James Robinson, who's in a bad matchup, tough matchup against Pittsburgh, but Chris Thompson once again out. And love to hear your guys' thoughts on James Conner, who just looks unplayable at this point. at least from the last 2 weeks, they've just abandoned all run game and are just passing the ball, just pass, even in a games that they're out in front, which we found out last week against Cincinnati. They're still just pass. So those are kind of the guys. Then we got some other plays, but what are your guys' thoughts with any of the guys that I mentioned? Top.
I agree with you with Pittsburgh and Kansas City's philosophy just seems to be they're just passing so much that it's really tough to invest in either one of those backfields at this point. And then there's also just the splits, right? I mean, Benny Snell is still seeing touches, so not only do they want to pass, but yeah, agree. I mean, Delvin Cook, he's going to be the chalk on this. Money is not going to be an issue to get Delvin at $9K. I think, I don't know, Kamara at 9,200 on DraftKings. I think he loses quite a bit of touchdown equity if Taysom is running QB there. So, I mean, Taysom's going to run quite a bit, and I think that just really kills them inside the 10-yard line. He didn't even have that great of a game last week. I had him. That was mainly the reason why I won last week, is because I had a decent percentage of Kamara. And, I mean, he did not play well. He just got 3 touchdowns. So if you start reducing some of that touchdown equity with Taysom Hill taking snaps, then I don't know. It's going to be
his
tough
last
to play
one tilted me, too, because they were ahead. And Latavius Murray was on the field, and they put him in for the third down for a 3rd and 1 from the goal line. Like when I thought for sure they were just going to give it to Latavius to do it, to let him have it.
Yeah.
That one was tilting.
But one guy that you kind of brought up, didn't really talk too much about him, is Mike Davis. I know you said you were going to go back to Duke Johnson. I think I'm for sure going to go back to Mike Davis here. Home against Detroit, I expect a lot of touches. This Detroit team has been terrible. And the price at 6,800. I mean, that's no easy buy. Obviously, he was 4K last week, so going all the way up to 6,800, where you have like a Miles Sanders at 69, James Conner at 66. I don't know how much love there's going to be for Mike Davis, especially what he did last week. And I'm going to be right there. I'm going to go right back to the well. So I think that might be my highest leverage guy of what I see right now for percent ownership. But and then even mix it in Aaron Jones and Miles Sanders in non-Delvin Cook lineups. I think I'm going to do more of the mid-tier guys. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing with the elite running backs. Tambo, how about you?
Pretty much similar to what you just said. I'm certainly going to be underweight on Dalvin Cook. I got a couple thoughts on, I guess one is, if he's going to be pushing 40, 50%, that's getting up there for a 9K running back. I know he's had some incredible games lately, but I also have this in my mind. This is just all hunch narrative based, but he's the other running back that really got paid. So him and Kamara and then Zeke, right? Zeke got paid before, but they're playing against Dallas, against Zeke's contract. And I feel like Jerry Jones and the boys are just going to sell out. They don't have much left there as far as the defense goes, but I think they're going to try whatever they can in their power. And I kind of like Kirkwood when he mentioned it earlier. I could see a spot here where save yourself $2,500, go down to Zeke and play him in this game. I don't know why. Like I said, it's more gut, more narrative, but it's not like Dalvin Cook is cheap. You mentioned it with Kamara there. It's interesting, but again, got to take a look at the price tag being so high. This is what I always talk about, paying up for probability. 10% ownership compared to Dalvin showing 40 right now. This guy is, got the same floor and ceiling. It's dependent on Taysom. Like you said, what does he do? How much does he matter? But Kamara can do quite a bit there. And then I'm with you, Brett, on the last couple ones you mentioned there. Always like running backs against Detroit. So Mike Davis falls in line there. And then the few other guys here that just don't, you're paying for volume and opportunity. I know the matchups aren't great, but you've got Henry, Jones, Chubb. Jones stands out the most for me, and then maybe Chubb after that. But these guys are just slate breakers if they have the right game, and they're almost, 2018 cheaper again than a guy like Cook. And these guys can absolutely go off. And then I go down from there, Kirkwood. I don't know how far you want to go, but I guess I'll segue to you, Kirkwood, on this one. The guy I like, and I know you got to deal with Cam there, But Damian Harris has been going off lately. He's got like 300-yard games in his last 6, even against some bigger teams. He's got touchdowns in the mix there. And it is Belichick. He typically will ride the hot hand in a situation like this. I wonder, we've been targeting guys against Houston all year, what your thoughts are on Harris at 5,700 in that range.
Yeah, I like him. I know one thing, like it's either he or Burkhead is going to go off. Is in this game. It's a good matchup for both. Only thing is then there's Cam too, that, you know, potentially can steal the equity. I like them. I don't have like the magic answer as a New England Patriots fan. I just know like one of those guys is going to go off. Harris looks awesome. You know, doesn't get it much in the passing game. You know, it kind of makes their offense one-dimensional there. But the thing is, nobody loves to just run the ball more than Belichick right now, and that's what they're going to do, and they should have success. There's no reason they shouldn't be able to have success all game. So you would think that he starts off well, and they just keep feeding him. So he'll have the first opportunity for sure. Rex Burkhead is kind of the second man there that they'll get involved too, and James White just doesn't do much anything anymore. So yeah, I like.
Should note too quickly my other thought on it. You're on the same page as me. It's so hard to predict, but I know when we get to wide receiver, Jacoby Myers is like the chalk of the week, right at 4,900. So if you want to go a little bit different in tournaments, that's the other reason why. I already like the matchup. I already like the spot. Like you said, they like to run. Harris is like 5.5 yards per carry. But if everyone's going to be on Myers, I think this is a good way to leverage up a little bit in that $5,700 range in running back. So I do like that about him, but it could be Burkhead.
I like it. Now, some other thoughts. So I do like Zeke. I just have that same feeling too, just coming off of the bye. Right, they're on a bye, I think. And also with Dalton back, I just feel like they've got to get their heads together and just pound Zeke. They're getting healthier. So I do like that one. Other guys that like we haven't even touched on or mentioned, like Derrick Henry. I know it's Baltimore, but like didn't he have a monster game against them in the playoffs last season, if I remember correctly? Yeah, he did. You know, it's starting to get, you know, every week it's starting to get a little colder. It's starting to get later into the season when this guy starts going. He's coming off of 2 bust games, but I don't think he's going to get much love whatsoever. So that's somebody for tournaments that's interesting to me. You did mention Miles Sanders. I like that. Antonio Gibson, nobody mentioned, right? It's just, man, McKissick got so much usage, but they were even like lining him up as like a wide receiver in that game.
I believe McKissick had 12 targets in the first quarter, and then he only ended up with like maybe 13 total.
He's got 29 in the last 2 games. Alex Smith just loves this guy.
Yeah. But what Kirkwood said is they were lining up in slots. So they were on the field a lot at the same time.
But from a running standpoint, like Gibson is explosive. It's just he doesn't get enough work to like fully crush. But like 20 points could be more than enough this week against Cincinnati. Did we talk about Gio at all?
You mentioned him.
I like Gio, but you mentioned him. I'm on him, but I think, you know, the discussion there is going to be around, you know, what's his pricing is 600? 55, sorry. So yeah, your boy Duke is there, McKissick's there, and then you didn't mention this, but Kalen Ballage is kind of interesting this week, 5,600 as well. So you got a lot of guys in that range. I do like Bernard with mixing out and with people on Johnson and Ballage a little bit there too. So yeah, go ahead. I like Bernard.
I want to go on Mike Davis. Actually, I can't play him. I don't think at 60. I get the usage, but like this guy's been banged up for like the last 5 games. Like he's always got like some sort of scare in game. Like he busted his thumb last game, came out and then came back in for like their last important drive, but then set out the remaining. It just seems like if this game gets out of hand either way, they may very well just be pathetic, this offense with, PJ Walker yes, he was good in the XFL, but he's never been NFL, like good in the NFL. And this is a whole different caliber of players and talent level. And I expect him to struggle completely. And like they should be able to just load up and, stop. I know their defense is bad, the Lions in general, but I have more faith in like Stafford having a really good game in this one than the other side. So I just have a hard time paying 6,800 after these busts, after like the injury scares that have just consistently happened with him, and he just hasn't been very good since that very beginning stretch.
I think Detroit's so hurt though. It's like you take Galladay out of that offense, you take Swift out of that offense, you take. I mean, they just don't have.
This game could be the shittiest game of all time. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
because in reality, like, yeah, there's going to be a lot of cheap pieces, but you still need it to shoot out for you to win GPPs. And I don't know,
man. Get that Detroit D. You just talked about this PJ Walker, Will Greer situation. You get Detroit D in there with your AP. It's only $6,700. Give him that short field and bang, he just scores.
They're just going to milk clock running with Adrian Peterson.
Yeah, that's what you do though. I think you go running back defense either way. I think both running back and defenses are in play, and maybe you don't stack it. I mean, you're going to get cheap wide receivers in Detroit, right? But yeah.
AP is just such a disgusting play.
I'm going to puke at this game.
He's going to get 30 touches.
It feels like the week he's going to do it for some reason. That's what I'm saying. I'm going off a lot of gut here, but I do feel like that's the play. Like that feels like it's going to happen.
Let's touch on Balaj. You mentioned him. I did write him up over in my Yahoo article plays today. I mean, I just like the idea of him being leverage off of Keenan Allen. But the more I think of Keenan Allen, the more I think of like how he just has to smash. But then again, I thought so last week, and he did absolutely nothing till he got there. He got the touchdown on like the absolute last possible play for him to get a touchdown on in the game. And but Herbert had just an awful game, and they should be able to do what they want. Mike Williams could have another big game in this one too. I mean, I definitely side with the passing side in this game, but I did hear that coach speak of Anthony Lynn. Oh, we got to get him more touches, and he doesn't look bad, and he did see 73% of the snaps last week, 18 carries, 6 targets. So I get it, and I was more gung ho on it now, but I'm starting to come around to the idea where I just love Keenan or Mike Williams.
Yeah. One thing I'll say about Balaj is I think it's a mini revenge game, isn't it?
Yeah, like, Adam Gase. Yeah.
He was with Adam Gase, and when everyone leaves Adam Gase, they just go off. So this would be like the double whammy here where you can just double down on that. I don't hate it. It's not someone I had high up my list, but I think at 5,600 it's fair. And I also think this game could be interesting. This could be one of those games where you just get two teams that you don't expect much out of, and then we end up seeing them shoot out. We've definitely seen it in the past in other Jets games. So if the Jets could not stay tight, but they were sticking around a little bit there against the Chiefs, at least for fantasy purposes, to make it a little bit interesting. The Chiefs blew them up in the end, but this would be a spot where I think that could happen, and these guys could be involved both sides. So I like Balaj at 5,600. I think he's interesting.
Well, I do. I like the game. Sorry, go ahead, Brett.
I was just gonna throw in a funny that Herbert cut his hair, so he's probably lost all of his power now. Okay. In that arm, so he's probably not going to be able to throw it to Keenan Allen properly.
Still got the acting, man. He's going to be
fresh
good.
Haircut narrative is a boost.
Yeah. I don't know. Did you see that picture, man? Yeah. He looks like he's 18 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to be young.
Yeah, it is.
But I mean, I think the Chargers passing offense is going to be able to crank in this one, and the Chargers defense is bad. That I think that the Jets are actually going to be able to be competent on the offense and put up some points too. At least they're getting healthy. At least Crowder's back. Perry, their offense looked like somewhat of an NFL caliber offense in their last one. With big touchdowns to Crowder, to Perryman. That's Flacco's guys, Perryman, and then Mims is just an alpha. who just, and they're just feeding that guy. So they have 3 solid receiver weapons now. So I feel comfortable that against this Chargers D that they'll be able to put up some points. So I do like the game to shoot out. But all right, let's talk about James Robinson. I mean, he's freaking good. Like I've said it all season. I've been playing this guy. He should have crushed last week. He got 2 touchdowns called back on crap holding penalties that were like just needless. Like there was no point to them, and took away 2 touchdowns. You add those 2 touchdowns to his 109 yards, also 2 receptions, which he didn't do anything with, but just monster usage, 23 carries again. I mean, the guy, it's just like, it just feels like he's a 100-yard bonus. Like, now this is the absolute worst possible matchup, but he should get a lot more involved in the passing game against Pitt. I don't know. I feel like betting on just usage in this one, because like people still don't play this guy enough. No.
Brett?
Yeah, I don't know. Like
This is a win. This is it. This is the play. I'm writing it down now. I
I'm
found my answer.
I'm probably off on James Robinson this week. I like how the running backs that are at the mid to low 5Ks. I think just because there's so many of them that it's going to really split ownership. So I think taking a stand on those, I kind of like. But Duke Johnson, probably my favorite out of those mid 5K guys. But yeah, Kalen Ballage right there. Melvin Gordon's been really seeing a high percentage of the carries and targets lately. So a game against Miami where Miami's defense has been looking really good, but they've still been giving it up versus the run in comparison. So somewhat of a run funnel there. Kind of sets up okay for Gordon in that game. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much exposure I'll have to the Detroit 4K guys, but that's probably where I cut off my love in the running back pool.
I like James Robinson. He fits the mold of what I was talking about. It's just still only Friday. We got some time here, but like the more I look at it, and I already was happy to be underweight on Cook, is like same feeling last week, Kirkwood. We were, the Mike Davis thoughts, right, at min price. You just said the more we looked at it, the more there was just so many other options that we liked or loved that, like, why bother even going there? And I'm starting to feel that about in the opposite direction with an expensive Cook, where there's so many guys. I liked your Henry take. It's just you're betting on volume. There's Henry, Aaron Jones, Nick Chubb, Miles Sanders.
Yeah, Aaron Jones we haven't talked about.
James Robinson. Like, these guys are all volume guys that we might, you can look at all this matchup stuff you want all day long. It literally takes 1 second for a guy to slip or for a broken tackle or one good block, and these guys are gone to the house for 80 yards. And then not only do they score an 80-yard touchdown, the other team comes right back out. The game flow is now sped up. Like, you've got all these changing pieces that your game becomes a lot better for fantasy purposes. So more opportunity beyond that. So I'm with you on all these volume guys and care way less about the matchups and who they're going up against.
Except I'm not on the volume of Mike Davis. Just wanted to make
Not
that.
there. Not
just
there.
Just wanted to make that. I'll take James.
It
Conner
might
over
be
Mike
fine.
Davis.
I love that matchup against Detroit, but like you said too, when you look back at all these L's they're taking as a team. So in the 2 wins, that he played a lot, the 3 wins actually, he had over 20 fantasy points on DraftKings, and all of those, the next 5 straight have been losses, all for like 12 or less DK points. So depends on if you think they beat Detroit or not, I guess, is where you kind of got to come back to, because if they beat Detroit, it looks like he's 20 plus. If they lose, looks like he's 12 and under, and there is other guys there. So I guess that's what your thought process should be.
All right. Anyone else I miss?
No, I think I'm good.
No.
What about Hines on the Colts? I mean, running backs against Green Bay, and Jonathan Taylor just seems like getting phased out each week. Hines had 12 carries, his usual 6 targets, 5 receptions. He had a touch rushing and And a receiving touchdown last week, 5,200. If they fall behind in this one, which, it's a very high likelihood against with Aaron Rodgers in a dome, then Hines could pay off, I think.
Yeah, I don't mind that take. Like, if you think the Packers, you could play like a stack where, you do like a Rodgers Devontae, and then you bring it back with the Hines pass catching reasons. I don't mind that. Yeah, this is just a three-headed, I don't know, backfield where I don't feel confident in anything carrying forward, right? So, like, based upon last week, I think Hines will be the most popular, but is that going to carry forward? I don't have a lot of confidence in it.
And you guys have a take on carry on at all?
Never really on that guy, man. So I couldn't tell you. It's definitely one of those 4K guys could get there between him and AP, but man.
Yeah, I dusted off a lot of money on carry on like 5 years ago. And just like his comments with DeAndre Swift, like basically saying, DeAndre Swift does basically everything better than me. That's why he should be playing. I think this is, if you believe Detroit, controls this game, then you go Adrian Peterson. But I don't know, man. It's tough for me to see Kerryon Johnson touching the ball too much.
All right. I can't do James Conner anymore. Are you guys going to go there at all?
I'm not really feeling that one either. I like the other side of it. You already talked about it, but James Robinson there. So kind of on the opposite sides. In Cook versus Zeke, I'm feeling Zeke for whatever reason. And then the other one, I definitely like Robinson just on volume alone. Like you said, I don't really care about how tough Pittsburgh's been. This is large field stuff. You're trying to win. Like, if he gets there, nobody's going to really have him. And he's only 6,400 for a guy that can open up 25, 30 fantasy points. So I'm going to be in on him for sure.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with your Zeke takes. Like, I didn't really have a strong feeling too much on him, but the more and more I look at it, the more I like Zeke at 6,500. So instead of paying for 6,600 James Conner in kind of a cloudy spot where it seems like all they want to do is pass the ball in Pittsburgh, I think Zeke makes a lot of sense at 65.
And it's not, but the thing with Zeke, right? It's not like the more we look at it, because the more we look at it should tell us that like everything is trending in a horrible direction for him, right? He's not getting in nearly the usage. Tony Pollard is totally, stepped on, come on now, and like basically a full split or whatever. And he hasn't looked good, and he's fumbling issues. It's just like a leap of faith that like after a bye with Andy Dalton back, with a vulnerable defense on the Minnesota side, it's just like taking a leap of faith and saying, okay, people aren't going to be playing this guy because of all this stuff, but this could be the week to get back on, where he comes out of the woodwork and, is back to the guy that we knew, from last season and the year before.
Question for you guys. I know the NFL's been talking about getting 8 teams in on each side. And I think what has to happen is there's got to be multiple cancellations for that to happen. But yeah, if the playoffs expands to 8, you're going to see teams kind of go a lot longer than just giving up, right? Dallas is a team where you're just going to be like, okay, when are they going to just hand over the reins to Pollard and some other quarterback and just kind of call the season? I feel like Jerry Jones never wants to call the season, right? And, he ends up almost calling the shots there, I would assume, because he's going to tell the coaches, hey, we're running Zeke here, through whatever, like week 13, week 14, whatever. And I think kind of, based upon what happens NFL from a big picture point of view, like if it goes up to 8 games, like I feel like Dallas could back end into like, if they get hot, they're a team where they look terrible right now, but their offensive line looks brutal, but like I could see that team getting hot. We saw what their wide receivers did in the first 5 weeks, but.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
he was.
I'm with you. I mentioned it earlier, but the contract thing, I think it's a narrative as it gets, but I really think he's going to want to show off Zeke here big time and just say, I got the better value for my money. You might think that, 2 games at a Cook recently on his 70 mil or whatever it is, I paid 90, but check my guy out. And just as a proving point, especially against a team like Minnesota that just wants to run all day long. I just, that's the type of guy I think Jerry Jones is. And I think this is a good spot. And at 6,500 versus 9,000, it's not like I got to pay a bunch to find out. So I'm going to go there in large field stuff, especially.
Minnesota has played pretty well against the run. But I don't think that I'll take the leap of faith with Zeke here at lower ownership. And
Right.
he still got 18 carries last week in a brutal matchup and looked terrible. But give him that little time out of the bye.
Dude, I think that's a great late game hammer. I mean, we already talked about the ownership on Dalvin Cook, right? Let's just flip the game script. Let's just say the Cowboys get up, Zeke has a monster game, and now you get leverage off of Cook, and you buy the passing game there. I kind of like what's that?
It's
Jefferson.
It's Jefferson.
Yeah,
dude's a freaking beast.
Yeah, I like that spot for especially in larger field tourneys like 1,000+ for sure.
Yeah,
of course, Thielen's got all that touchdown equity, but
you can play them both. We're going to segue to quarterback anyway, but you got Cousins, put him in there with Thielen, Jefferson, Zeke on the other side. That's the game plan. When Cousins is thrown, he was fired up, man. He got his first, what was it, Monday Night Football win that he finally got. He's like 1-9 now on Monday Night Football. He was pumped. You like that? He was right back at it, smashing helmets off guys. Like, he's fired up to get back in the game. And if they're down, he's going to be chucking. It's like you said, it's pretty obvious. It's Thielen and it's Jefferson. Jefferson is just a beast as far as running routes and getting open. He's making guys look silly out there, and he's catching everything. So,
and they're coming on. They're coming on a short week. So, I mean, I do like the Dallas side here, just for that fact alone. The more and more I look at that game, the more and more I kind of want to stack it up.
Yeah.
All right. Moving over to quarterback. Starting from an ownership perspective, I think Herbert's probably going to be up there for the highest owned. It's going to be him and Deshaun Watson probably. Maybe Taysom Hill gets that momentum going in, and because he's so cheap, everyone's gonna be looking to play him. Then there's Lamar and Cam. Lamar's price is 7,300, which seems high for this season. I mean, it is high for this season. I mean, he did have one good game against Philly where he had that rushing upside, and he's actually had a nice rushing floor. If you look at his last, he's had like at least 50, actually he's had at least 45 yards in every game except for that one game against the Bengals where he did nothing, but you could tell his knee was severe. It was really bothering him in that game. But so he's had at least a nice rushing floor. He hasn't really hit that rushing ceiling that we're used to that often. He did have that one game against Philly for 108 yards where he broke one. But hasn't been a good at all passing. Their offense has been struggling in general. But certainly this is a good matchup for the passing game. I do remember that Josh Allen did absolutely no running against Tennessee, but I don't think that matters. But the thing that strikes me with Lamar, who do they get? They get Dory Jackson back, I think. Dory Jackson, and they've also, we always forget that they did add All-Pro Desmond King. So this is a defense that's completely vulnerable to the pass, but they're getting better. They added a good option and they're getting healthier. Dory Jackson is certainly a good player. So I'd be interested to hear your guys' thoughts there. The other thing that stands out to me is that, Pittsburgh has an easy matchup with Jacksonville, right? And we're already, all of us, whether we're right or wrong, don't really like James Conner because it just feels like they've just abandoned the run game. And you look at his passing attempts, 46 passing attempts last week against Cincy in a game that they won by 26 points, 42 the week before. Now, granted, they were behind, but that's where they kind of, abandoned fully the run. tough matchup before that against Baltimore, where he only had 32 passing attempts. Slow, sluggish game. But then against Tennessee, 49 passing attempts. So, I mean, that's 49, 42, 46 passing attempts with elite weapons, right? He's got Claypool. Deontay Johnson is absolutely like the wide receiver one now in this offense. And he's a beast as long as he stays healthy in the game. Claypool is an absolute beast on all areas. You know, they can do so much with that guy. And Juju is finally back to performing. So they have elite pass catching weapons, and this is just an elite matchup against the Jags. So the more I've been thinking about it, like if I don't like James Conner, then I should love Roethlisberger, especially like at a lower ownership than the run guys with running upside.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Especially with your love of James Robinson too. I think there's ways to really stack up that game. I'm probably not there with you on the James Robinson, but you gotta love the pass run ratio, especially with the game script saying, hey, they should be running the ball. And what we've always seen with Pittsburgh is they do run the ball, especially on the road where Roethlisberger's always had issues, right? Now on the road, you don't have to worry about crowd noise. So these road games, like Roethlisberger's just been slicing and dicing. So, or at least the last 2 weeks, at Dallas. I mean, he had a monster game. I'm right there with you. It's the only tough part is you don't feel confident with what wide receiver it's going to be, but we've kind of seen different ceiling games out of all of them, and with Juju coming back into fold here. So I'll have to do a little bit more of the wide receiver cornerback research, but yeah, I'm right there with you about Deontay being probably the highest floor play, but to me, Claypool is still the best GPP play. I mean, that guy is a monster. He's a beast. I think you should have Claypool. If you're a 150 lineup person, you should have at least 5 to 10% of him every week. So,
yeah, Mapletron, man. We talked about it. Now you've rehashed all the takes from last week, Kirkwood. You just made me remember them all. We were off Davis. We were on Tom Brady, just slicing and dicing. We were on Mapletron, going out, having another game, like all these thoughts. And I just remembered that I was close and couldn't put it all together. So short memory in this game.
I don't think we said naked Brady though. That would have just been the play right there. Naked
really
Brady.
though. Yeah, you're right. I thought
Imagine
it was,
if we touted that, then we could brag about it.
Hey, some guy tagged us up and said it was the Tourney Takes pod, led to his 100K, and he had the Mapletron, Deontay, who you liked, and Ben.
He had Higgins. I think that was your call.
Yeah, Higgins on the other side, who Burrow trusts. So, hey, it's all good. We're putting it together, man. We're getting there. It's week 11. It is later in the season, but we still got time. One thing about Lamar, you mentioned him quickly there, but his biggest game of all time was against Tennessee? Like 365 passing yards, but then threw a bunch of interceptions. It was in the playoffs last year when they took him out.
Yeah, that's when they had to come from behind.
20 rushes for 140 something. Like, this is my guy, man. That game was extremely disappointing to watch as a major Ravens fan. Like, that just sucked. It started early in the game when they just been trusting the analytics all year. They went for it on fourth. In my opinion, way too early in the game, where I know you got to trust the numbers, but either way, had a huge game against them. I think it's a revenge spot. That sucks, man. They were supposed to move on, not just me as a biased fan, but there was no way it was supposed to be Tennessee going on to play Kansas City. That was supposed to be Lamar versus Mahomes, Lamar's MVP season. Let's see what happens, and we didn't get that. So I think Baltimore is going to have a good game here. I think you already talked about it a few times about, the slate and who's on it as far as quarterbacks are concerned. So I like Lamar. I like Deshaun Watson. For those two rushing guys, Herbert's going to be pretty chalky, but I think for good reason. But then I don't mind your thought process around some of these other guys that can throw, like Ben Roethlisberger, Kirk Cousins, and then I'll even drop down to Carson Wentz in a game we didn't talk much about, just because this slate doesn't have all these guys that can break it. And if Lamar or one of Lamar, Herbert, Watson have that bad game as guys that you think about as floor upside combination, you've still got other guys that can throw 3 touchdowns. That could be the difference on a slate like this, right? So they don't need to rush a bunch or do anything like that. Or, never know, a guy like Kirk Cousins could even rush one in there and take it away from Dalvin and tilt the chalk there at running back. So That's sort of the 6 that stand out to me. And then you can go down from there to like Joe Burrow and take some shots in some, on some higher risk guys. But I definitely like those ones that I mentioned there at the top: Lamar, Herbert, Watson, Ben, Kirk, and Wentz. Those are sort of the 6 that I'm on this week.
Yeah, so the interesting thing about Wentz is that big injury news popped up. Not injury, but Myles Garrett tested positive for COVID and is now out. So that is a huge blow for the pass rush.
Huge. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for which Wentz absolutely struggles with. That's the key, is getting pressure on him. So that's got to be a boost for Wentz, and maybe like Miles Sanders some too as well, but more so for Wentz.
It's hard to pick who to pair him with.
And he
Sucks,
busted.
but it's fun.
He busted last week when like all signs were pointing to like he should have had a good game. A healthier offensive line. Goddard was chalked. Jalen Reagor back. Sanders was rounding into form back. And so, if we just delay that now another week with like when people are already like upset about him, they're upset about Goddard. They see that awful game he had last week. But this is still a guy who put up 30 fantasy points against Baltimore, 31 against the Giants. And now with no Myles Garrett. So I think that's a good call.
Yep, and he's got legs. I think both Wentz, I really love Wentz. And I know, Tambo, you kind of touched on Burrow. I like Burrow quite a bit, just because you're getting guys at 5,500, 5,700 that still do have a floor, and they've shown somewhat of a ceiling with their legs. So, yeah, I like both of those guys quite a bit. Right there with you guys on Lamar Jackson. It was kind of nice to hear the narrative in the playoffs. I mean, that's a narrative I truly, truly do believe in. I mean, Lamar, he thought about that game probably for a long time. So,
oh yeah,
he wants us bad. And you're right. He had a lot of yardage, both throwing and running. But if I remember that game correctly, there were quite a few turnovers in that game. They were just
that's why he racked all this stuff up. He literally was dominating them and then would throw it away. Interception. Yep. He never throws for 300 yards. That was always the tough part with him. He had both bonuses in that game. He destroyed, and they only scored 12 points. And he had like almost 40 DraftKings points, I think. So it's like crazy to think, but I definitely think there's something to that. And he's going to have a little bit of ownership this week. I'm not expecting him to come in as this super sleeper play, but I just look back now. Yeah, 36 DraftKings points when he played them, and they scored 12 points as a team.
Yeah.
So,
and yeah, I love this because I think Lamar, being a young guy, and he's such a passionate dude. Like, he's probably been like circling this game since the season opened. So
yeah, not to beat a dead horse, but with this guy and his motivation, but also check the news the last week. They just lost to the Patriots. Another game where they expected just to smash. Everybody is down on Lamar. He's broken. There's nothing that you can do with this guy. He sucks. He can't pass. It's proven. One lucky year. All these factors that are coming out.
He's RG3.
That's what's coming out. Yeah, and he's there with him. So
are all three of us, are we all in on this play? We're good?
Lamar is on the Tourney Takes lineup.
I like him, and I'm not all in on him.
What are we pairing him up with, though? What are we doing receivers?
Well, that's the question, right?
Well, so it's Andrews or Marquise.
Yeah.
Only
two options, right?
I was going to say Marquise is the one, but he has
Willie Snead goes off again.
He loves Snead right now, man. It's crazy.
But Duvernay always pops too.
God. Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's doesn't have that weather. 40 pass attempts last week, even in that crap weather game. It's just that's what we saw. Like, we saw against Cleveland, 47 pass attempts and 38 fantasy points. Washington has a good defense, but I don't envision them to be able to run much on them in this game. I think the best use of Bernard will be check down in the passing game, just to be an added passing game weapon for them. I could see him going off.
What wide receiver are you pairing?
Higgins. The man.
He loves Higgins, man.
It's Higgins.
Higgins is the alpha. Yeah, I mean, like with Cincinnati and Pittsburgh.
Bad matchup for Boyd. AJ Green is dust. and that leaves you with Higgins.
One thing I will say though, do you guys think if I'm just saying for that build, we're talking about a build here. So if we're using this matchup and we're using Burrow and Higgins, I actually, as much as I love Gibson on the week, I kind of prefer McKissick in that spot because now I'm saying that we're going to get more of a, if I'm going to get a full ceiling out of Burrow and Higgins, do you think, I don't think it's going to be that one-sided. I think that it would be McKissick coming back where we're going to need those 12 targets again and catching all those passes. That would be like a nice little trio for cheap that you could use in a tournament and then load it up otherwise and be already extremely off the board.
Or you could just use McLaurin.
Or yeah, of course, we didn't get there. We're going there next. He's a guy I love too. You're right. So
I'll say this,
but yeah, I don't mind. I mean, the dude, if they're gonna pepper McKissick with targets like that and they're gonna use him as a wide receiver, then yeah, sure. I don't know
100%.
how confident do I feel like that's gonna be the case again this week. I don't know. I have no. It's just so bizarre to me in the first place. But
if Alex Smith is taking snaps under quarterback, just look at his snap counts and where he's getting the snap counts. He is playing a ton of slot, which are exactly what you want on a PPR site like DraftKings at 5,200. I think that's a steal. No doubt has a very low floor just because of his rushing capabilities. But look at those targets, 29 targets the last 2 weeks. And why?
Yeah.
Because Alex Smith is your quarterback. So, yes, 100% that's you.
I mean, I played Logan Thomas in cash last week because of that reason.
We're going to wide receiver anyway, but how popular is McLaurin? Because I love him as a play, but like the ownership, like I'm saying, if you want like a nice little mini stack, running it with Burrow and then getting Higgins and McKissick in to make it the statement of if it's going to be a Burrow game, it means they're going to be coming from behind, back and forth to get the tempo up. McKissick getting those targets again, that would be like a nice little trio where you could pretty much fit anybody you wanted after that and not even have to worry about if you're unique or not. Like, at that point you're already set.
That's what kind of surprised me is McLaurin's ownership last week. I was surprised so many guys across the industry had him. I mean, he was highly owned also, but just with Alex Smith being the quarterback, that blew me away.
Because they still scheme like all these plays for him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's okay. So segue into a wide receiver. I think he's going to be popular. I think he's going to be top 5, 6, 7 popularity. Now, do I like him? Yes, I absolutely like him. Basically, like it just comes down. You just look like he hasn't had it's not just Alex Smith. It's also Haskins who was before him, right? Like, so he doesn't have a real quarterback, and he's still ranked 6th in targets, 10th in receptions, 4th in receiving yards, 11th in air yards, and 6th in target share. Only thing, he just hasn't had a lot of touchdowns. He had 3 touchdowns on the season. So like that is so impressive when he's doing it with no quarterback. So he's like top 10 in basically every metric, top 5 in most, and he's doing it with a bum quarterback. And every week it seems like they're scheming more like designed plays. Like they're not just like running normal routes with this guy. Like they're scheming weird plays to get him the ball, and that's good. You know what I mean? It's like that's at least something good that Washington is doing, and they're doing it with terrible quarterbacks. But like, he can still break one on any of these guys. You know, I mean, he's F1 scary Terry McLaurin, baby. You know?
Oh yeah.
So I like him. I mean, do I expect him to get like an 80-yard deep shot? No, he's going to have to take a slant to the house or something, like, or break a tackle and go 80 yards, but he can do that. All right. Jacoby Myers. Let's start at the top. Devontae Adams is probably going to be the most popular. Now there's been like some problems with his ankle this week. It appears he's going to play through it and be fine to go. He did have the same, ankle issue last week. Underwhelming performance, still got a touchdown, massive touchdown equity. But a tougher matchup against the Colts. What do you like? What's your overall, like, how are you guys playing him in GPPs and in cash even? Like, if you guys play, I know Brett plays cash. Do you play much cash, Tambo?
Not a lot. Normally some though. In NFL especially, I do golf a little bit, but not as much. So football, I think it's better.
Yeah, Tambo's way better at the rules here, but I think this is a perfect rule where you should never have Aaron Jones and Devontae in a lineup, but having one or the other makes total sense. So I'll have plenty of both Aaron Jones and Devontae, but never in one lineup together.
Yeah, it's just harder to get them to go off together, especially when you got to factor in at that point. You might as well have Rodgers in there, and you know you're racking it up. I like Adams quite a bit. I'm surprised he's still only shown 15% ownership at 8.6K in a dome, you know, in Indianapolis. So yeah, I mean, I think Lazard comes back this week, which is a little bit interesting for Green Bay side. He was supposed to come back last week, I think, and then didn't. So
yeah, that should only help, I think.
well, yeah, Rodgers keys in on him
general.
too, but at the same time, exactly, it opens it up. So now he's got another guy in there that's actually good or decent, and now you can go to Adams even more. So yeah, I'm surprised. It was, what was he, 9K with 9,100 or 9K, and he was like chalk, and now at 8.6K. My opinion, a better match. I think they're actually, are they underdogs or I forget what the odds are. The line is
2.5 point
for
2.5 point underdogs.
Yeah, so the knock against him is the people are a little bit scared because of the injury, also because of the underwhelming performance last week, and because of the matchup against the Colts. Because the Colts just having a ton of production. They've, they allowed some decent games to like Allen Robinson. AJ Green actually had a decent game against them. But they've limited production. But he'll match up with Xavier Rhodes, who he's torched. But that was when he torched him last season. But they're like two completely different players this season. At least it must be like the scheme and the way that they're using him, their defensive scheme, because he's fitting much better and he's doing very well this season. But he was the guy that was the easiest target.
Yeah, they've had plenty of matchups in the past when he was with the Vikings. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about that.
But yeah, and I mean it's a tough matchup for Aaron Jones too as well. Okay, Jacoby Myers,
your boy.
I mean, the dude's he's a stud. He really is, at least for like this Patriots team. And like Cam loves him, and like he's getting separation, getting open on like anybody. He's like the clear threat. Now the problem is so he's going to face Roby this week, who's actually pretty good. Now he's like the one bright spot of the Houston defense, but I mean it's tough to not take a wide receiver one against Houston for that cheap.
Over 40% target share the last 3 weeks. I mean, at 4,900.
He's got less targets than McKissick over the last 2 weeks, though. So that's
sure.
Gonna be worrisome.
The bulk of the.
Well, that's a good point. Is that the Patriots are just a run team, and right now, and are just there's a lack of play volume, and B, they're just running it. And they're mixing it up with Harris, Burkhead, and whatever.
But you gotta like he's throwing touchdowns. They're getting him involved in weird schemes where he's the guy.
He threw a touchdown.
Touchdown pass.
He threw a touchdown.
Nice.
He's not throwing touchdowns. He threw
a touchdown.
Yes, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like you can't talk him up like we got another Taysom here or something.
No, but it's nice. It's nice that he's the guy that they're scheming when it comes to a play like that, right? So. They're getting unique with him.
I think he's a really good play, and I think that the biggest thing he has going for him is the price tag on DraftKings doesn't really have if you look what's around him, there's not anybody that I'm going out of my way to be like, well, I got to pivot to this guy. Like CeeDee Lamb and Mike Williams might be interesting. Cooks, sure, but then there's just a bunch of different names that you don't have much trust in either way. When to Kirkwood's point, it looks like Cam does have a lot of trust in him, so. It's interesting, but it's also the ownership comes with that. So, you got to make your decisions somewhere. And there's a lot of receivers on the slate, man. There's so many guys up above and down below that, it's tough for me to just get heavy on him. But I don't think he's a bad play. I just, be wary of how you're using him and make sure you're building accordingly, right? So, Kirkwood?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I like him, but there's that. It's just the worry that there's so run. It's a tough matchup, at least from the one good spot on the Houston defense. Plus Cam can vulture away touchdowns with the best of them. Harris could have a big day and they could rush for the touchdowns. So he looks like a smash because he's a wide receiver 1. And like you said, the target share and stuff, and he's got the trust. But like now that his price has come up to 4,900, there are paths to him not being such a great play, and that he's going to get a lot of ownership this week. Mm-hmm. So other guys, Keenan Allen. I mean, it's hard for me not to love Keenan Allen. I just don't see, like, after like a subpar performance where he did get the touchdown, he was pissed off. He wasn't getting utilized. Herbert was like struggling all game, but like if you look at the numbers, basically he's still like the target share monster, 29% target share. He's third in targets, third in receptions. He's an elite wide receiver 1, at least from volume production, and has now found the end zone again last week, luckily. But it's just now it's like the Jets, just their secondary has no talent. They cut Desir. Brian Poole, their best, is on the IR again, I already mentioned. And so he's like, even on like Pro Football Focus, like just from the matchup, the wide receiver cornerback matchups, and RG2 as well, he's coming in at like one of the biggest mismatches, based up for the week, because he'll against some inexperienced Corey Ballantyne, who's going to try to be covering him in the slot. So it just seems like such easy pickings for them to go to him. But I also do like a leverage off of that with Mike Williams. And I think you can actually just play the whole passing game and just play them both. But I love Keenan Allen. And I know his price is up there, so there's room for failure that way, especially after his game last week. And there's also the Kalen Ballage leverage play we could do, but I just don't see Keenan failing. But then again, I didn't see Devontae Parker failing against the Jets, but remember that week?
Yeah. Well, we didn't think Keenan was going to fail last week either, and he did for us. But I still love him.
Tougher matchup, though, against the Dolphins,
Yeah, last week was more of a price play we liked, but we thought with his matchup against the slot guy versus, Byron Jones and the other on the outside there, Xavier Howard. So it's like, 7,400. It's still a pretty solid price, man. For this
I love this spot. I mean, the Chargers are on to RB3, right? How much are they going to really trust Kalen Ballage? I think this is a great bounce back for Keenan Allen. Agree with you also on Mike Williams. So, I mean, this is a spot where go ahead, do a double stack, and then there's plenty of Jets to bring it back with too that are in play. So, I like a double stack here for sure.
Yeah, Mims, Perriman, and Crowder. Who's Brett's gonna like Crowder?
Well, I mean, Crowder, the price is the only downside on DraftKings at 6,100. He's better priced across the industry, but Mims, my gosh, you look at his athletic body, it's tough not to fall in love with Mims.
And he's an alpha, man.
At 3,300, that's pretty
3,300. I mean, and 8 targets against the Patriots.
Mm-hmm. You do kind of want to stay inside on the Chargers. So, I mean, Crowder's going to be avoiding some of their better corners. But.
So I'm expecting. So the one to avoid, it's Casey Hayward.
Correct.
Is the one. So I'm assuming I'm thinking it's probably going to be Perriman who gets gobbled up with Hayward.
Yeah, and they haven't really been shadowing there, so I don't expect a shadow. So I won't really worry too much about the wide receiver cornerback matchup on the outside, but their outside corners are better.
And Perriman, you mentioned it. That's Flacco's dude, man, the former Raven.
I know. So that's why I love this game. Like, I think that the Jets can put up points.
They definitely can. I like the back and forth of it. I still like Crowder too, though, man. This guy just gets a lot of targets.
Well,
the price is,
he definitely avoids Casey Hayward.
Yeah, the slot.
He can just rack them up all day, and that's the thing. And then if he gets in or if he gets loose on one.
Dude, how the Jets use their slot wide receiver is ridiculous on the season. So, I mean, that slot wide receiver is still going to be the main target on most routes. So just know that. But I think Mims' ceiling here is ridiculous. Crowder gets there on ceiling mainly because of targets and catches alone, very similar to Keenan Allen. So,
dude, this seems like This seems like such a massive floor that you get with Herbert, Keenan Allen, and Crowder, like from a target perspective. Assuming that this game doesn't just they don't just roll, like Chargers don't roll over the Jets or vice versa. It just seems like you can get such a monster target floor with those.
Right.
Two
and then you have your upside guys in Mike Williams and Mims.
And it's it's also completely stackable with, adding double stacks, even a double bring back because of the pricing. Because it's all about pricing, right? Like the pricing dictates how we can do it. And throwing in a $3,300 Mims is not gonna affect Crowder too much.
And not if we get the game we're expecting, right? You're gonna get there. So
yeah.
I like putting them all together. I don't mind that one either for going heavy on a game stack. That'd be interesting there.
I love this game.
If that game puts up 60 points and you decide to land on 4 wide receivers with one in the flex there, you're gonna be printed.
The only thing I worry about, no, not worried, but I guess we talked about all this stuff with Dalvin Cook, is that obviously how cheap all those guys are, you can automatically fit Dalvin Cook. So then I think you got to look at how can you get a little bit different, maybe use 3 next tier running backs and get unique that way, right? And have some mid range.
You can do it. There's multiple ways.
There's things you can do if you want to go that way.
There's
yeah,
strategies.
Definitely.
Did you see how fast both Mims and Brashad Perriman are both sub 4.4s? You got Mims at 4.38 and then Perriman's at 4.3. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Do you used to be a runner?
I mean, more long distance, but yeah, I was really good.
Like you did track and
more cross country. Wow.
But you do that for your high school and stuff?
Yeah, I was a
because I always wonder how people know these speeds. Like, oh, he ran a 4. Like to me, it's all just it doesn't matter in my head because I never ran. Running was always a punishment for me.
I
would take some laps.
I would collect some stolen bases back in the day, baby. I was a little speedster.
All right. Justin Jefferson's a beast. Play him. That's what I'm gonna say. Terry McLaurin, beast. Play him. Michael Thomas. Levitan's cash play of the week last week. The guy just keeps crushing it, for the people out there.
There are a lot of people on that though.
But that was interesting to see that. But he certainly busted. 7 targets, 2 receptions.
Who didn't bust last week?
What?
Said who didn't bust?
Yeah, I mean,
Keenan Allen busted.
Diggs got. I could not. I thought Diggs was a far superior play than Michael Thomas last week, and Diggs got there at the end in that touchdown.
Yeah, but did you play Keenan Allen instead of both those two?
No, I had I played Diggs in cash. No Keenan Allen.
Oof,
I played Keenan Allen on Yahoo. I had Diggs on Yahoo too as well.
Yeah, but I had Diggs. Yeah.
But anyway, so Thomas. So I mean, he certainly takes a hit from without Drew Brees. He also just hasn't. He's got 2, tough injuries to come back from. A high ankle sprain, which takes forever, and people always come out. And then he's had a nagging hamstring.
Do people even like him on his team? Like, I feel like he's now at that prima donna stage. Like it's like he's a headache to this organization.
I have no idea. I have no clue on even to whether I have nothing of importance to comment on. I have no clue. Why, have you read things or he disrupts it or something? Or
oh yeah, I mean just like the fights and whatnot, and the organization just suspending one of their best players. Like, name an organization that would do that, even if he's showing bad behavior.
Yeah, I didn't know what the story was there.
There's got to be more to it, but yeah, I mean, and then obviously punching a cornerback in the head with it's just okay.
He's no killer Keith Kirkwood, but.
Is he still in the league? He's got to be.
He's been in. So I got a jersey shipped. So my girl contacted him, and she got my jersey. She took my jersey out of the closet and sent it to him. without me knowing and got him.
Oh, that's right. He Twittered you, right?
Yeah, but I never followed up.
Oh,
So she Instagrammed him, and
good girlfriend
he
right
was
there.
and he was really like nice about it. And he also said he was going to hook me up because he like was delayed. He was like, I'm gonna do something real nice. Don't worry. Like, so I was thinking I was going to get like game tickets or something for like some game. Never came through. But
I believe
he's on
it was
Carolina, but he's had injury. He went.
Okay.
So that's Temple coach Matt Rule took him. So I was really hopeful he was going to have a good season, but he's been hurt all year.
I believe that was 2 Thanksgivings ago that he put up a touchdown on the board, and he was on the late night.
I think it was last season.
Was it last season?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Anyway, so speaking of which, Robbie Anderson, man, I don't want to touch any of these guys. The only, I guess, DJ Moore is tempting at his price at 5,600. Do you guys have any? Curtis Samuel, like, maybe makes a little bit more sense for more gadget plays. Didn't he? I think he had I think I liked him last week and he was terrible, but I don't know. I don't really want to invest, as Brett would say, in much of this passing game. Any of you guys interested at all there?
Yeah, like in theory, I like the passing game when you take C-Mac off this offense. And like you said, Samuel with his gadget plays goes up in my eyes. He's had at least 3 carries, actually exactly 3 carries the last 3 games. Just heavily involved in every aspect of their offense. So I'd probably like Samuel for the price at 4,700. The gap between Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore is a lot thinner. Both are in play too. I don't know. This is going to be another tough situation. Which Carolina guy do you want? And I'd probably lean Samuel right now.
I just can't see Walker really.
That's not as high on any of them
Samuel
because of that.
I could do more. What'd you say?
Well, it's just the quarterback situation is so tough. But I actually would. I'm opposite of both of you guys. I would lean Robbie, just because people have been trying to make this work and it hasn't. And this to me would be the spot that it would against Detroit. One thing about him this season, we talked about this a few podcasts ago on here about just his usage and, the 13, 8, 8, 13, 11, like all these targets. And they're not all these. Everyone just thinks that Robbie Anderson is like boom or bust. And unfortunately, his box scores will still show that and with very little boom. But they have been using him differently. So it would be interesting to see with Walker, Greer, one of these guys in there, if Bridgewater can't go, if they, continue to use him that way. And then this is a spot where I actually think he could break one. So I actually would just pay for him. Samuel's the other guy that's more interesting because we talked about it last week where they use him as sort of the offset to Davis, more than they were using Davis, and it's been hurting him. So probably Anderson, then Samuel, then Moore for me.
Deontay Johnson, averaging over 10 targets in the 6 games that he's finished this season, averaging 12 targets, 91 yards, and a touchdown over his last 3 healthy games. Gets a good matchup, like we said, against the Jags. Jags are ranked 31st in DVOA versus the pass. Also ranked dead last in yards per target allowed to receivers. I have nothing bad to say about Deontay Johnson, and I like Claypool. I like all these Steelers. I can't tell. Deontay's my favorite. Claypool's my second favorite, and I think you should play some Juju.
I don't hate that. One offense I want to break down is the Eagles. You got Jalen Reagor at 4,300. You have Travis Fulgham at 5,600, and then Goddard at 3,800. I think all 3 are in play. I mean, again, this is kind of a tough spot. Reagor looked really good last week, but I don't mind going back to Fulgham here at 5,600. And then I really do believe we're going to see a Dallas Goddard breakout game here pretty soon. So I want to have him in my pool of receivers for Philly.
So he's had back-to-back games now where he came back and has done absolutely nothing.
Yep.
Now, the first game I gave it a pass because it was like his first game back. He was still on the field. in running tons of routes the whole time. Now, last week it was kind of weird because he had like the initial like concussion scare, right? He got injured right off the bat and went into the tent to get checked for head injury, and then came back and started to come on late a little bit. So I kind of give him a pass in that one too, as well. Plus, Wentz played so poorly last week.
That was his worst game of the year.
Yeah. So if you're optimistic about Wentz's game this week, if you're optimistic with the fact that they're losing Myles Garrett, and should have all the weapons, with Fulgham, who's come into his own, Rieger, Goddard should be ready to rip this time. Then I mean, it seems like a better week to play him, where he's won't be as chalky, except he is going to be chalky again because he's priced so low and there's not many tight end options. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out, because he's going to pop in projection. It'll be interesting to see if like people like don't want to go back, but like people aren't scared anymore to go back.
Yeah, I love doing a Wentz double stack, and even in the double stack, I don't mind putting Miles Sanders in there too as one of the options. And then, I mean, my bring back would be Jarvis Landry. Again, this is an offense that's been in probably the worst weather that we've seen an NFL team play in a long time in back-to-back weeks. So Jarvis Landry, I think at 5,500, another super, super high target guy, can get there just on catches alone, can see a ceiling very similar to a Keenan Allen type of ceiling just with catches alone. So I like that.
All right, a couple opinions I want from you guys. Brandon Cooks against his former Patriots squad. Will Fuller probably dealing with Gilmore.
Yeah, I'm in on Cooks. I talked about Watson earlier, and Cooks is the guy I love for it. I talked a little bit about this last week too, but where he can just catch these short passes and then do work with them. So, this is the type of spot I think we would see something like that. New England's going to try and get after Watson. So, yeah, I like him there. And
Jakeem Grant.
Yeah, I was going to name Grant. I got a couple takes down low here. So Grant is 3,500 against Denver. So he was great last week at 3,000. I don't even think it's chasing. I just think the price is not catching up enough. He still had a good week. 3,500 is a pretty fair price for him. So I like that one. We already talked about Mims down here, but the other guy I got down here is Chris Conley. Laviska Shenault is still going to be out back-to-back 8-target games. Nothing, hasn't got into the box yet, but has a red zone target in there. So, I mean, they could still use him for that. But we just talked about this Pittsburgh passing game. I know we like Robinson, but if you want to make it a little bit cheaper and be able to fit in some of these other running backs, I think that's the way to go as a guy like Conley at 3,000 straight with the Shenault injury. Not a lot of people that I've seen are really talking about it. And he's one that stands out that's actually been getting some work lately. So I could definitely go there as well.
Interesting. Never even thought of him. I will write that down.
And then one thing that I'll just mention on again is leveraging off the Dalvin Cook chalk and buying the Vikings wide receivers. Don't know if it's smart to double stack these guys. I mean, we saw both of them have good games. Jefferson with just mainly the catches and yards, and then Thielen with the touchdowns last Monday night. But getting off the Dalvin Cook chalk, buying the Minnesota wide receivers, bringing it back with Zeke or one of the.
I think they work well too. Like if you're building your lineups to do, if you're not doing double stacks and you have like a single stack on with a single bring back to just
Dallas wide receivers, I lean towards the.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Oh,
I can hear you.
Yeah, so putting in like a Justin Jefferson and Zeke, like correlation together, or Thielen and Zeke, or Amari Cooper, and I don't know. It'd be tough if you can fit one of them. If you do the,
you do
have
Cooper
like
Jefferson.
you have like single stacks to put another correlated plays together.
Yep.
Without having to use like Kirk Cousins or Andy Dalton.
By the way, Michael Gallup, 3,700.
Yeah.
And he gets a passing quarterback back in the offense here. I mean, Gallup at 3,700.
Allegedly.
Yeah. It just seems way too cheap for a guy that only needs to catch a couple balls.
No, there's upside there for sure. I'm with that. Oh, we never talked about New Orleans, the bringbacks, the Julio or Ridley. Just play either of them.
Probably Ridley for cheaper.
Oh,
and he's
also
back, and no one
Lattimore.
wants to be on him.
Lattimore
Yep.
may be out now.
I'm with you on Ridley over.
I think
Julio.
I'd still go Ridley myself, just because I think less, more. He was injured all week, but we knew he was probably going to play, and so hopefully some people are off that. But
Lattimore
yeah.
usually shadows Julio and is now questionable.
Yeah, I see that on the update here. And they just put Breeze on the IR, so that means he's going to be out multiple weeks.
All right. Should we any other plays that I'm missing here?
I'm good on the wide receiver spot.
Tight end is interesting still, so yeah.
All right, tight end it is. Mark Andrews coming in, probably going to be the highest owned, has struggled this season. What everyone thought was going to be his monster breakout year certainly has suffered due to the poor passing play of Tambo's boy, Lamar Jackson. However, this is a good get right spot for him against Tennessee. So be interesting to hear your guys' thoughts with that. Then there's Dallas Goedert, who we already touched on. I guess we're all in agreement. We like him. We're giving him a pass for these first two games and say, should be good to go. Hunter Henry finally got in the box last week for a touchdown. Man, that doesn't really excite me at all. Logan Thomas is a guy I like. I played him last week. His price didn't move. The production, six targets, 4 receptions, 66 yards last week. Cincinnati, I think they've been pretty bad against tight ends. I'll have to pull that up. But he was somebody I was eyeing anyway. But where do you guys like the most at tight end?
Yeah, probably there with you on the cheap with Goddard. I probably won't go to Logan Thomas at all. You know what? I think the cheapest I'll probably go is Goddard at 3,800. Really like Hawkinson at 4,200. Again, no DeAndre Swift in this offense, so I think especially red zone time, Hawkinson might have a little bit higher touchdown equity here. And he's kind of been just a steady beast all year in Carolina, where I do like Mike Davis quite a bit. So, and a spot where they're going to be without Galladay. They're going to be without Amendola. I really like Hawkinson at 4,200. So if, this is going to be definitely a percentage owned. If Goddard is really, really high owned, then I'm going to pivot to Hawkinson. I guess we shouldn't have buried the lead that Taysom Hill is a tight end over on FanDuel. The question is, Kirkwood, you don't play FanDuel. Tambo, do you play FanDuel?
I play some, yeah.
Will you create a lineup? How many lineups are you creating over on FanDuel?
Let's say 20 to 30 or so. Most of my volume is going to be on DraftKings, but I'll always play some over there just because it's a little bit different game over there, but I do like it still.
Can you build a lineup this week without Taysom Hill at tight end?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of lineups that you can build without him. So
okay.
I don't know if it's necessarily the most optimal or smart play, but if it was cash, I'm playing him because it's just so cheap. The upside, the possibility, the coach speak. I mean, especially if we get any word that he's definitely starting, if that does eventually come out here from Peyton or whatever, then that's a little bit different because you're going to get so many options. He's a quarterback there, then of course you got to go in. But if not, or even if there's anything, the sign of 75 or 80% at a one spot position like tight end, I'm definitely going to build some lineups without him.
But I mean, he's min price. So what is like if he's the starter? I mean, his floor is like 15 points.
Oh yeah, that's what I said. If it's officially official, like
issue.
you think it could be, then you got to be a little bit different.
The issue is that tight end is such a shit show this week, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm legitimately thinking on DraftKings about like, so I got, remember I told you I was arguing with my buddy about a lineup that we were putting in.
Yeah.
And we played Mercedes Lewis because of that stupid tweet or whatever about them potentially getting him touchdowns. I didn't want to do it once they announced Tanya inactive, but we played him. But like we were like, one of the reasons was like we could still cash with a 0 here potentially, because like we didn't think tight end was so good. So I'm already like looking at this week how gross it is. Like we don't get Waller because he's on the Sunday night. We don't get anyone. We don't get Kelsey. He's on the Sunday night. We've got there's no more Kittle. There's none of these guys. So I'm legitimately thinking like I can take like a Anthony Ferkser for 2,500 or a Jordan Akins, and potentially be fine with taking a 0 if they get no production and still potentially cash is the way I'm even thinking about that. And if that's how I'm thinking, like Taysom's floor is even more valuable. So it's like harder to even like.
And he's been priced, and it's FanDuel, right? It's FanDuel where it's not a PPR site. So it's like, it's tough for a tight end to even with like 5 to 10 points of him, I think this week, especially with his rushing floor.
Especially
Tambo,
like
what
you're talking about like a 3K or something like if that's what you're talking about before, but you're talking DraftKings. But yeah, if I had a $3,000 lineup on FanDuel this week, there would be no way I would fade Taysom Hill.
And he's going to be probably 90% owned in cash games. He's
a blocker in cash. That's what I'm saying. So it's not a big deal there.
Yeah.
It's when you go over to tournaments, you'd have to look for a way around it. And there's definitely a path, how aggressive do you want to be and how do you want to build your lineups? Because the other thing is most of the lineups with them are going to be those game stacks. Not a lot of people are going to use them as like a one-off or anything like that. So I don't mind that either. So there's ways to use him. And then there's other ways that you could go around him, but it's tough to imagine, like you said.
Yeah, there's people that don't use optimizers that don't, they just build off their phone where they're not going to see him because he's under the min category, and they're going to assume that Taysom Hill.
I build great lineups off my phone. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Yeah, but they're going to assume that Taysom's a quarterback, right? So they're not even thinking Taysom Hill at tight end. So he's not going to be anywhere near 100%, I think, like in cash games even.
I'm team phone builder over here.
Tambo, go ahead. What do you got for tight ends this week?
And I like Mark Andrews, Goddard, the guys that you mentioned. You got to go down the list a little bit, I think. A couple that stood out. One was Eric Ebron. We talked about all those receivers on the Pittsburgh side, but we also talked about liking Roethlisberger. So I think that's a spot we could see some action. I don't know how you don't want to play a little bit of Hawkinson at just 4,200 with everybody in their dugout in that game. No Swift, no Galladay, no Amendola, nobody. So again, doesn't really matter who's throwing him the ball. There should be opportunity there. And that's a little bit nicer. I didn't go look actually at the ownership just yet. I know that Mark Andrews was getting a bunch of it. Right now, where's he at? I can't even find him, or maybe I went past him, but yeah, 2% now on Hawkinson.
That's probably because that people thought he was. I expect him to be much higher owned than that.
Yeah. Maybe he will be. Maybe he won't. I just know there's other guys there. But yeah, if not, go to Ebron. I don't mind him underneath. Sort of those two guys. The thing I like about them is they're squeezed in between Andrews and Goddard, who I think are going to be more popular. So can definitely go that way. And then I think we got to see I can't remember if Doyle is out or not, but Mo Alley Cox would be another one that's interesting in this spot at a much cheaper price. I think he's 2,900. Yeah. So if Doyle's out, I don't mind that. Rivers seems to like him quite a bit. And yeah, I know, Brett, you love your Logan Thomas, but maybe this is the actual week you could use him. I don't know. 3,300's not bad.
Yeah. I'm not on Logan Thomas. That was a huge spike week for Alex Smith on the amount of throws. So his
three out of his last 4 double digits, though. I think Thomas might be coming around some now. It just took some time to break in and needed Alex Smith a little bit in his pocket too, I think. So
I played him in cash last week. I'm on board with Logan Thomas.
Yeah, he's getting targets too, man. So
it feels like a good week to use Austin Hooper.
I was just gonna throw him out there. Good, go ahead.
Well, Philly's been. I went way too heavy on Ingram last week, but thankfully no tight end really did anything, so it didn't punish me too much. But like Philly's been torched with by opposing tight ends all season, and although it wasn't last week, but Hooper's just like a guy that's been like forgotten about now, because he hasn't produced much this season because of the injuries, because of the cold game in the absolute cold wind where they, didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And, he only got one reception on 2 targets. But this feels like he's still like, so that the talent gap is much, much smaller this week because we don't have that high end group here. So if Mark Andrews and Goddard bust, like a guy like Austin Hooper could easily do like 1 or 2 touchdowns and, more than pay off on his $3,900 price tag.
Yeah, and the prices for all these guys have dropped because of those weather games. So, Hooper I really like, especially if we're talking single digit ownership for sure. And one guy that I didn't mention at wide receiver, but I definitely want to, is Rashard Higgins. Again, it was 2 years ago when Baker Mayfield came onto the scene, and his guy was Rashard Higgins. So, again, we've had weather games. Nobody has seen the Rashard Higgins breakout yet. I guess he did have 6 targets, 6 catches for 110 3 weeks ago. But this is a spot where you're going to get him for very low ownership, mainly because of the weather that they've faced the last 2 weeks. So I'm all about Cleveland looking a lot better. And you just mentioned how bad, the Philly defense has been. So it's just like, I don't know. Seems like a good spot.
Yeah, I do like that because I didn't call you out on it earlier, but you were talking about Landry being a target monster.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know if you knew that he only has 2 games over 6 receptions all season. So, or targets, sorry, 2 games over 6 targets all season. So he has not been a target monster.
Correct. So yeah, I guess
Odell
this is
out,
like,
so I like your Higgs call a lot more, to be honest.
Okay. So yeah, this is like post Odell, first game without Odell and clean weather. Right. So that's kind of like merging of 2 things. Like the weather was unbelievably ridiculous in both of those games. Like I think that just like handcuff any situation. I'm not taking anything of those last 2 games into consideration of Cleveland going forward.
Yeah, I just haven't seen anything from him all season. He's disappeared. So I'm with you. I like your Higgins call. I think that's a good one. I think that's a good play, and everyone's been waiting on that, like you said, and it definitely could happen. So I don't mind that one at all at his price tag as well.
All right, let's close it out with stacks. Top stacks. I'm gonna take the chalky one that I love first, which is gonna be Herbert to Keenan Allen, and I'm gonna bring it back with Crowder. But I like playing this one, like we talked about on the show. I like playing this one as a large stack by throwing in either Mims or Mike Williams alongside with these guys, and just really hoping that this game completely breaks out.
Curious, Kirkwood, do you change your like stack based upon the size of the tournament? Like how deep of a stack would you go like in a millionaire maker?
Yeah, no, so I would typically I'm lazy, and so I usually don't. I always end up behind on what I want to do, but if it was up to me, I would take the games that I want to do. I'm very comfortable doing single stacks this season because most people aren't doing them as much. So then I've been correlating other pieces, but I would take like a portion of my build. So I would build like 100 lineups or 110 lineups or 120 lineups, with my normal way. And then I would take the few games that I want to build bigger and then just, set up my rules to include 2 or whatever. And, 2 pass catchers and 1 bring back, or 2 and 2, and then and build that with the remaining, and then merge them. That's how I would do it. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I guess I was kind of like, because I mean a lot of times.
But it would be in the milli maker. It'd be in the big field stuff. But like,
yeah,
if I really like the game, I wouldn't be scared doing it in smaller field stuff either.
I feel like a million maker, right? If you're trying to go for first, like you have to get everything right. So to do like a 2 wide receivers on one side, 2 wide receivers on the other side, and then a quarterback, it's tough for that to win a million maker. But it's not tough to win like, a 500, 600 person tournament when that game
You've been listening
up.
to Leone and in ETR.
Yeah, I've definitely listened to a lot of because tournaments are not like,
and I agree. I agree with that. I agree
crazy
with that,
big tournaments. Like my specialty has always been under 1,000 person tournaments, single entry, 3 max. Like that's where I focus.
But here's the thing. So I get that the theory on like on not having to get as many pieces right, and like so if it's Keenan Allen who goes off for a monster game and Mike Williams is a small game, you benefit by having Herbert and Keenan, and you can live on in the other pieces of your lineup. But like big game stacks also win huge field stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like if the game goes off, so that's what we're like, especially when there's like a lot of games this week where it doesn't feel like any of them are really going to go off. If you do hit that one that absolutely does go off, and I think a candidate for that game could be like if the Jets actually surprise people and put up points, for once, and because both of these defenses are atrocious. Like this is a candidate, and this is also a smaller total. Like it's not, people aren't going to be expecting it as much, but it's a game that certainly could, in my view, be like that. And then pricing dictates that also. So it's not tough for like Denzel Mims to be if he puts up 20 fantasy points, he's in a milli maker lineup, like that's not a problem. So I think there's like I think they both work. Like both of those theories work.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so my stack will be the Philly Cleveland game. We'll do a Carson Wentz. And we'll do I guess we'll do a Miles Sanders and a Travis Fulgham, and then we'll bring it back with Jarvis Landry there. Yeah, and Tambo, what's your stack?
It took me all the last 20 minutes since we brought it up to try and find a Herbert with the whole world stack that I said would be so easy, and it actually wasn't. So really kind of like that one. I know that Kirkwood already mentioned it, but I finally found it. The Tourney takes one. There's a Lamar setup in there as well, but I mentioned the Burrow one, Burrow, Higgins, McKissick, or McLaurin, whatever you want to use on the other side. And then I still like the Wentz one as well. I know it's hard to pair it up, but for me, it would probably be Rager, who we talked about, or Goddard, or both, and then bring it back with
or Fulgham.
Yeah, you could do that. I like Rager a little more, and he's cheaper. And then I like Chubb. Still, we didn't talk enough about that earlier on, but I guess that just my point was, that's the sort of guy that I want. Guys like him and Henry that are in that mix that are going to get volume, can definitely still have a good game, and them having a good game typically will up the pace, and then you'll have a situation where now these other quarterbacks on the other side can go off. So I do like that as well.
I'd say my high leverage stack would be a Kirk Cousins to a Justin Jefferson, and then I'll bring it back with 2 Cowboys. I would bring it back with Zeke and bring it back with Michael Gallup at 3,700.
I like the Gallup call.
All right, and I'll close out the show with so I want to just reiterate that I wrote down on my notebook my cheese, as I'm one of Cheese's disciples. I still use the pad and the paper.
I got my pad and my paper too.
But I wrote down Wentz, like as someone I wasn't, even thinking about when we were coming into the show, and like just starting to like it more and more as we did this show. But I also really love Ben Roethlisberger. So like I'm looking at all these guys that don't have much rushing upside besides Lamar and Cam, and this is the perfect week to take advantage of somebody who can light it up on 46 passing attempts on a team that doesn't want to run against an atrocious defense, and just run it up. And so you can play Ben with Deontay's my favorite, but also throwing Claypool in there too as well, or Juju, too, and then running it back with James Robinson. I think this is the week to do that. So I'm going to make sure I do that. All right.
Brand.
We good to go?
All right, boys, let's get it.
All right. Yeah. Crush. I hope all you guys crush. I feel like a big Tambo week is coming.
Got to live up to my nickname, man. Shit.
The great, he's going to take down all these Canadians. and fellow Americans here. No, I hope you crush. And Brett, I hope you crush. And everyone listening, I hope you crush. And most importantly, I hope I crush. Actually, I really hope Brandon Moreno wins against Brandon
UFC?
Royval and UFC on Saturday night, because I have a monster bet on that. So please,
there. Let's
please. So that's it. So this has been the RG DFS Tournament Takes podcast, week 11, and we'll catch you next week.